Hello and welcome to our telesummit and podcast series on preventing cancer, exposing the environmental causes. I'm your host, Jenny Lamorgan, owner of greenwomanstore.com, where we enjoy creating educational tools like this podcast series on topics important to us as women. I'm excited to be here with our guest, Jean Gallick, an inventor who has focused for 30 years on environmental pollution and electromagnetic radiation protection. Jean invented EMF protection technology to improve her chronic illness and the health of others. She is going to tell us today about EMFs in cancer and her Tai Chi Solution. This telesummit is about our health, it's about politics, what we know and what we need to know about cancer, and preventing cancer and its recurrence. It's about medical practices, our environment, and our science. We've invited women experts whose passion it is to educate and encourage other women toward health and political action. So let me introduce you to our guest today, Jean Gallick. Jean learned that EMFs were a huge contributing factor to her own chronic health problems and the problems that others were experiencing. With a background in experimental psychology and scientific methodology, she conducted experiments and discovered that while we are grounded to the Earth's energy, our bodies heal and thrive, and man-made EMFs do not affect us or our health when we are in Earth's resonance. She is the founder and owner of EarthComm EMF Protection devices, and she has created these products to ground us more deeply to the electromagnetic field of the Earth, with great benefits to our health. Welcome, Jean Gallick, and thank you very much for speaking with us and for your scientific work with EMF radiation.
Well, thank you very much for the lovely introduction.
A lot of good things that you've been doing, and you've been doing it for many, many, many years. So I know I've used EMF protection devices for many years and was glad to find out about yours because it's the first technology I actually can understand, which makes it more real for me as well.
Yeah, interesting. Great.
So can you share with us why you began your study with EMF frequencies on the human body?
Well, I was one of those people. It was in the actually in the late 60s, early 70s that I was just sick all the time and constantly had a headache and caught every flu that went around. Every couple of weeks, it seems, I was sick with another flu. And I just, I would go to these different healers and try to get some help, and nothing really worked. And one day I read an article that there was more pollution inside the home than outside the home. And that just really rang a bell for me of alarm. Of course, at that time, we understood this to be, it was called environmental illness. Excuse me. And so I decided I had to face this and figure it out on my own. So I began researching sources of pollution inside the home. Formaldehyde is the major one, and different types of cleaning products. And after I had control for all of those, I still didn't have any improvement. And what happened is I read a book. I discovered a man named George Lakowski, and he was one of the first people to try to conceptualize the electromagnetic structure of the Earth and of the human nervous system. Electricity itself had just been invented in the 1900s, or was starting to be put into people's homes, and he tried to understand just what electricity is and how it functions. And he actually, at the same time, cancer was starting to be a problem, and he came up with a circuit called the Lakowski oscillating circuit that he actually set up a clinic in New York City in the 1920s and started working with people who had cancer. And he actually was quite successful, was actually healing people with his oscillating circuit. And, of course, then he was shut down by the AMA for being a quote-unquote quack. So, and that was because at that time, the concept of the human body as electromagnetic was considered quackery. People, true science, quote unquote, was conceiving of the human of health in terms of the human body is just an object in space and time. It can be analyzed and all, and the source of electrical conductivity in the body was considered to be the nervous system, which was chemical in nature and not electromagnetic in nature. And so, anyway, so what happened is he was shut down. But as I was reading about him, I found a book by Mark Clement called Waves That Heal, and he had pictures of the oscillating circuit and sort of a discussion of the experiments that George Lakowski was doing. And I saw that and thought, well, I'll just go ahead and make one myself and see what happens. So I did, and actually I had an experience of my headache going away. And it was just an amazing experience. And that's when I realized that the body is electromagnetic, and that the source of a lot of my problems were electrical in nature. And I started playing with the circuit, and I made it stronger, and I actually found other circuits that also had a direct experience of healing on my body. So I actually put together these circuits into a copper bracelet and started selling them in the New Age shows. And that's when I discovered that other people as well would really responded and had experiences of healing as well.
Wow, I love your scientific mind. You know, it really takes somebody like you to be able to understand all of that, and your curiosity, you know, and your commitment as well to your own health and to other people's health. So what kinds of cancers are caused by electromagnetic radiation? Is it limited to breast and brain tumors? That's what we hear about.
Well, it depends upon exposure, like what areas of the body are exposed. I think you mentioned before the interview about women who carry their cell phones in their bras. Well, that is certainly going to contribute to breast cancer. What happens is there's basically two kinds of causative factors involved, and one is the microwave radiation from cell phones, and that actually destroys or breaks up and alters the DNA, which is, of course, then related to cancer, directly related to cancer. And so if you put your cell phone in your bra, you're going to start to destroy or harm the DNA in your breasts, and that will result in breast cancer. So, and they actually, if you there's a report on the internet called the Bioinitiative Report, and it documents all the cases showing the relationship between, microwave exposure and breast cancer. And like women, for instance, who work at, if you have an electric stove, that has an impact on your breast, or if you operate a sewing machine. Now, these are instances of the home electricity that also puts out an electromagnetic field that also has an impact on the human body. And this is kind of the unspoken, unacknowledged part of the story, which is it's not just the microwave radiation that's so dangerous, it's also the electromagnetic fields that are generated in our home. And I was actually, as I was preparing for this interview this morning, I was looking at cancer as a word and what it means. Of course, it refers to the crab, which is it kind of symbolizes the home in some way because of the shell. It takes its shell with it wherever it goes. And the early Greeks who had observed cancer and were trying to come up with a name for it used that word, cancer. And so it's almost as if, you know, the home can imprison you in some sense. But it was just an interesting observation, but it actually is the alternating current. We chose alternating current to use in our homes, and that was, again, in the early 1900s. And what happens is that when you have an alternating current, it goes back and forth at 60 times a second. That induces electrical current in any nearby conductor. That's how all electricity is generated, is you move a magnet back and forth at a certain pulsation, and that generates current in a nearby conductor. So that is exactly what we have set up in our homes, is pulsating magnets that induce current in our bodies. That this current has no biological function. It's just interpreted by the body as stress. So that is the other way that works is something called resonance, which is the 60 hertz is very close to the frequency of the human nervous system. And so resonance gets set up, and resonance is a fascinating concept. What it means is that if you have two electromagnetic systems and you put them in close proximity, the one that's higher frequency will come down, or the one that's a lower frequency will come up until resonance is established, and then information and energy is transferred from the one to the other. So in a sense, that's a good thing, because in the Earth's electromagnetic field, we evolved in relationship to that field. And that is a very a fundamental process that gives our body all types of signals and as to when to do, you know, how to regulate our system, how to heal our bodies, and sleeping and waking, and all the different cycles of the human body are intimately connected to the Earth's electromagnetic field. And so that is a good thing. But when you have, right now we are actually in resonance with our man-made radiation inside our homes, which actually is disrupting that original healing relationship to the Earth. And so that there's just this situation of stress being generated by that. So in fact, they find now that energy actually affects the cell metabolism, so that calcium ions, lithium ions get at the potassium ions get knocked out of their proper biological functioning and get abnormally deposited in the bones or wherever, so that's they now know a primary reason for a lot of the different health problems that we have in our civilization.
Wow. And so what are some of these other symptoms of EMFs that we can become aware of as, you know, possible precursors to cancer or other diseases, you know, that are chronic, that we really, like environmental illness, you know, the doctors don't know what to do about it. So
right,
what are some of those common symptoms?
Well, what happens is just the stress. It's a constant state of subtle stress. And they have found, actually, there's an incredible study that was done by Samuel Milham. He's an epidemiologist in Washington, and he studied what people die of, and he found that in the 1970s, about half the population of the United States had been electrified, so that the urban areas were still free of electricity, and the urban areas were all, the cities were all electrified. And he looked at what people were dying of, and he found that people in the urban areas were dying of heart attack, cardiovascular, cancer, suicide or depression, and then diabetes. So these illnesses of modern civilization were skyrocketing in the urban areas, whereas in the rural areas, they were non-existent or very, very low. And so then he was able to look at the death statistics over the ensuing years up until the present, and as an area became electrified, those indicators all rose. So it's really, in my mind, shocking proof of the how electromagnetic fields do relate, certainly to cancer, but also to heart disease and depression. So,
yeah. What I'm hearing you say that I didn't realize before is because I know about the cell phones and the cell towers and that kind of thing, that form of electromagnetic radiation, but you're saying that even the homes that we're living in really is a grid of electromagnetic fields. It's not natural for us.
That is really exactly right, yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't realize that as much before. Thank you very much for that. Wow.
Well, a lot of the stress-related autoimmune diseases that we're seeing, like fibromyalgia and even asthma, but these are all, or even just simply having, it's amazing how many people have a chronic headache all the time. And we're obviously for children, behavioral problems, irritability, and ADHD, all these types of stress-related problems are, to a large extent, a result of the electrification of our homes.
And I've heard of
make it worse. What? I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I've heard of remarkable situations with families where the behavior of the children or the dogs next door, on homes that share a wall, when they put these devices in their homes to stop it, to clear it or ground it, just amazing changes in the behaviors of the family members and the children, especially. They're so sensitive.
Yes, it makes a huge difference. And the irony is that even when you go outside in today's world, you cannot get free of it because of the microwave radiation, which is also, the technical word for it is demodulate. The human nervous system demodulates microwave radiation. It reads it, it receives it, and absorbs it, and takes information from it, and that's what causes the problem. So microwave radiation, they have found now, has an equal, if not greater, impact in terms of breakage of DNA and just creating a stressful situation where people are tired but they can't relax. They have trouble sleeping. So high blood pressure. These are all symptoms of chronic stress.
And certainly insomnia is a huge problem in the United States.
Yeah.
And that's why, and what you're saying is, no matter where we go, we're going to experience it or encounter it, and that's where the pendants come in. I know I wear one of those pendants a lot because I'm on the computer a lot, but I hadn't thought as much about needing it when I'm out and about, so thank you again for that.
Yeah.
Are there some people that are more at risk than others, perhaps those who have environmental illness or people with weak immune systems, children, animals? How does that play out?
Well,
as far as
there's an excellent book on electromagnetic fields and human health. It's by Dr. Robert Becker. It's called Cross Currents, and it really gives an incredibly background to how all of this actually works. And what he has found is that the healing mechanism of the human body, how the human body heals itself, is through the acupuncture meridian system. And those are DC-based electrical currents in their semiconductor, but they're currents inside the human body, and that's how we heal ourselves. So once the immune system is no longer functioning, the body's ability to regulate itself, to heal itself, gets so heavily compromised, almost paralyzed by the man-made electromagnetic fields, that your body is no longer able to heal itself. And so once you start to lose your ability to maintain your health, it's hard to recover, to get back to being a healthy person. And so, yeah, people who do have compromised immune systems are definitely, subject to possibility of getting cancer or heart disease. And part of the reason for that is because their bodies are not functioning electrically the way they should be, and the reason for that is the environment. It's not themselves personally, but it's the environment in which we live. And maybe as children, they lived in a home that was near a high-tension voltage line outside their window. So maybe in a family you had one child whose bedroom is right on the street and not right near that high-voltage line that distributes the electricity to the home. The other child has another bedroom. So that child that's exposed is going to have more health problems. Or they've also found that mothers who use cell phones, 35% of the children that they have are ADHD, have behavioral problems. And so it's really about levels of exposure and then the body's inability to heal itself.
Mm-hmm. And children and small pets, I think, too.
Yes.
Just because their bodies are so much smaller.
Well, and that's right. The brain is less dense and the skull, the bones are thinner, and so they find that the electromagnetic field, like from a cell phone, goes halfway through a child's head. Whereas with an adult, maybe it's just an inch or two, so.
Right. Wow. Now, I've also heard that the electromagnetic radiation is multiplied 10 times inside our cars if we're using our cell phone inside the car. Is that true? And if so, what about electric cars?
Well, the problem with cars has really gotten a lot worse, not because of electric cars so much as because of all the computers that are now in cars. So, the cars, there's so many different computers inside a car that emits an electromagnetic field that causes stress in your nervous system. So, and then also you have the alternator itself in the motor, which is emitting electromagnetic fields. That might be a little further removed from the driver or the passenger, but it's still contributing to the problem of those exposure levels. And, of course, the highways are, every few miles you come across a cell phone tower that, is right there. So I used to have a big problem when I would approach a big city, because as you come into a big city, it's usually around the perimeter of the city is where they have all their huge, microwave towers. And, oh, my gosh, I would, be in all the traffic and freeways, and you hit that perimeter, and that I would just get so dizzy and sick, and I'd get frightened and couldn't keep my, I couldn't stay in my, I stayed in my lane, but under great anxiety and stress. So I find that it's when driving, having protection is one of the most important times to have that protection, just to be able to drive safely. But just to answer your question about electric cars, I don't think electric cars use DC batteries, and even though a certain amount of electromagnetic field is generated by by the motor, still the batteries themselves, actually DC systems don't generate electromagnetic fields because the fields don't shift back and forth. When the fields shift back and forth, that the problem occurs. So the batteries themselves are really not a source of danger. And in fact, and when they do milligauss measurements inside cars, they found that electric cars are nowhere near as bad as your modern car with all its computers. That's where you're looking at maybe in an electric car, you'll have a 3, 4, 5 milligauss exposure level, which is high but not terrible. Whereas in a normal vehicle that people buy today, you might be looking at 100 milligauss exposure, or huge exposures due to all the computers and the wireless microwave radiation that's also inside the car, not to mention your personal cell phone usage, of course, and all that, how people will sit on the car and, use their cell phones. So.
Mm-hmm. Wow, and another new invention is the smart meters that are being placed on our homes. And sometimes they're put on our homes and we're not even aware that they are sources of EMF radiation. Mm-hmm. So can you talk a little bit about smart meters and what smart meters are and why they're a danger, an added danger, I think, to the electrical grid of our homes?
Well, the smart meter generates a field of microwave radiation. And and of course they're on all the time, so they're just constantly in use, and they're just increasing the strength of the microwave radiation inside the home. So it's interesting because the EarthComm, we have a product that you can use in your home, and it protects you from the grid, the AC grid in your home of electromagnetic fields. But it also, because the router is plugged into your home's electrical system, it's wired in, it measures the current, right? That's its purpose. But it's wired into your home's normal AC system. So the circuitry of the EarthComm circuits gets transferred into the smart meter, and so it neutralizes the field of microwave radiation generated by the smart meter. And the interesting thing also is that if you have a wireless router, which is, of course, been studied a lot as a problem because it generates a field of microwave radiation inside your home. Well, we have also found that the EarthComm circuits get transferred into the wireless router, so that any laptop or your child plays this Wi-Fi game or whatever game uses that access to that Wi-Fi, that wireless router to get onto the internet, that the circuits are transferred to those devices as well, so that actually even though the system was designed for the alternating current for the home's electrical system, it also operates on any fields of microwave radiation that are directly tied into the AC electrical system. So all the laptop, the games that children play, the tablets that they read with or whatever, all those items are safe if they are programmed into your wireless router and you have the EarthComm Home system installed. And another one which people aren't really aware of is cordless phone. So your cordless phone is also a little microwave generator that is virtually on all the time. So, but the same thing, that it will also protect you from the radiation on your cordless phone. Now, as far as your cell phone goes, the cell phone, of course, has its own connection to the internet through the cell phone tower, or rather connection to other cell phones through the cell phone tower. So when you actually are charging your cell phone, then it actually is protected. The field emitted by your cell phone is neutralized by the EarthComm circuits. But once you take it off the charger and it just, you're just using it, then we have another product called the quantum cell that you put on your cell phone to protect you from that radiation when you're using it.
Right, and I use that all the time because otherwise I get the hot ear,
Oh,
really
yeah. So you use a quantum cell on your cell phone?
I do on my cell phone, and then I use the pendant. And between the two, I don't have any of those the symptoms that I can actually feel from the EMF.
And what difference did you notice with the pendant when you put it on?
I don't notice anything different, but I don't get tired, and I don't get any pain in the side of my head, and I don't get the hot ear when I'm on the cell phone, which I'm on a lot during the day at the computer, with the two. So between the two, with the device on the cell phone and the pendant, I'm great. I feel fine.
Solid,
I work for hours.
Interesting.
So this is what you're calling the Tai Chi solution to EMF radiation. I love that analogy. Is that when we're grounded to the Earth's energy, then the EMF radiation isn't altering and harming really our DNA, which is what leads to so many of the cancers and the other diseases.
Well, a lot of people who studied the problem of electromagnetic fields, they will say that the only thing you can do is to avoid the cell phone. Don't let your children use a cell phone. Don't let your child use a computer, and or paint your walls black, or people do various things to try to protect themselves from microwave radiation. And the fact is, of course, this is all impossible, that you really can't do it. And so because it's, you paint your walls black to protect yourself from microwave radiation from the cell phone tower that's, down the block. But inside your home, you're still completely exposed to all that radiation. So it's really a hopeless cause. And in fact, the computer is one of the great opportunities for the evolution of human intelligence. I mean, it's an incredible tool. And but the problem is we have had these negative side effects from using the technology. And if we can eliminate the side effects, then we can use the technology and hopefully access the value and of what that technology is for our own evolution.
And that's the benefit of having EMF protection.
And by grounding to the Earth's electromagnetic field, as you were saying, that's the Tai Chi effect, is that the hazard, it doesn't stay in your body or in your nervous system. It just immediately goes into not the crust of the Earth, it goes into the Earth's electromagnetic field. And that's a bit of a different concept. It's a fascinating idea. It's called the Schumann Resonance. And it's the area between the crust of the Earth and the ionosphere. And so that is like a cavity between, if you can visualize one large sphere, which is the ionosphere, and then a smaller sphere inside that, which is the Earth, then that area in between is called that's where the Schumann Resonance operates. And it actually absorbs information. It's powered by lightning strikes, which are creating an electromagnetic balance between the crust of the Earth and the ionosphere. And the lightning strikes generate energy that goes around the Earth and creates a standing field. Because the field, once it goes around the Earth, because the lightning strikes, and then the field is generated by that lightning strike, and it goes around the Earth in both directions and then meets itself, and so creates a standing field. And the frequencies that are maintained are the frequencies that exactly match the circumference of the Earth. So it's a fascinating concept, and it absorbs all information from the crust of the Earth. So any thought you think or action you take or a flower grows, all that information on some level is modulated into called the Schumann Resonance. Same thing on the level of the ionosphere. All happenings anywhere in the universe have an impact on the ionosphere and are modulated into the Schumann Resonance. So that's the Earth's electromagnetic field, and that's what we've been separated from in our, use of man-made electricity and man-made microwave radiation.
And that's what we want to connect with again.
That's right.
That's where the protection is. All right.
That's where the protection is. That's right.
Very good. Thank you.
Both as a ground, as an absorbing of the negative, but also as a access of the positive, the healing, the signaling, the correct, paradigms for your functioning of your cells and your body. That's the positive. And you want to be in resonance with that because you want to receive that information. So it acts as a ground to absorb the negative, but also put you in touch with the positive of the Earth's, of the Schumann Resonance.
And, we carry your products on Green Woman Store, and I also list your products on our Women's Spirituality page for that reason. Because I think that in order for us to be in that healthy vibration, when we're doing our spiritual work, that these are great tools to help us get there as well. So.
Yes, thank you. Yes.
Yeah. So thank you very much, Jean Gallick, for educating us not only about electricity. You've given us I love your scientific mind. You've given us a good education on electricity and on the health effects of EMF radiation and how we can begin to protect ourselves. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us today?
Just that it's interesting because the DC batteries that are used in alternative energy like solar energy and wind energy, all the alternative ways of generating energy are stored in batteries. And then that direct current is really benign. It does not have a detrimental effect on your nervous system. And so eventually, as we change from these huge power plants that generate all this electricity and then send it to us through these alternating current lines, we will have a possibility of, I think eventually we can understand that it will all be different, that it will be based upon a different local generation of a community can generate its electricity locally, or you can generate your own electricity locally on your rooftop. And you, of course, at this point in time, you still need to use the inverter to change it to alternating current because all our appliances use alternating current. And so EarthComm is still an important part of the picture, but eventually it's inevitable that we will all shift over to direct current or earth-based energy generation.
Wow, that's very good news. Very good news. Because I think, all the problems in the world are being solved. And we just, at the grassroots level certainly, and a lot of them at the UN level, and it's just that big area in between our governments and our corporations that kind of need to come along with us. So thank you for that good news and a little peek into how all of this electricity is really going to be changing. Solar and wind is going to be changing our health as well as our environmental situation. So, all right. Thank you again, Jean. We've learned a lot from you today. And we have links. Thank you, Jean. We have links to Jean's EMF protection devices. She is at earthcom.com. That's EARTHCALM.com. And she has a page on the dangers of EMF radiation, which includes the common symptoms to look for, information on electromagnetic sensitivity, facts about children and radiation risks, and more information on how her science works. And you also want to read her blog. It's a good way to keep up with the latest information and scientific data on EMF radiation. And we have Jean's products at greenwomanstore.com, where all of our products are made by women entrepreneurs like Jean. They're not all scientists, but everybody's doing good things in the world. So our thanks once again to Jean Gallick, inventor and owner of EarthComm.org. And we thank you for taking time out of your busy day to join us. I hope you have enjoyed our talk today and that we've informed and inspired you in ways that improve your health and longevity. And if you're looking for new ways and the latest information on preventing cancer, please try to catch more of our podcasts in our Preventing Cancer series. And please share your interviews with your friends and family. You never know who you may be helping. And I hope you will take time to make the healthy changes you've heard about today a priority in your life. Thank you. Keep listening, and bye for now.